Hello there. I'm Dr. Terry James Gingras, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, the show that tries to make the world safe for ADHD. I am a clinical psychologist and neuropsychologist in private practice. A large part of my practice is ADHD, both adults and children. I also am the parent of an ADHD child. And I was a parent at the time when we didn't know, frankly, we didn't know jack about ADHD. I managed to make it through a whole graduate program in clinical psychology without ever learning a thing about attention deficit disorder. And didn't really know I was lacking anything until I started seeing a bunch of kids in private practice, and fortunately, since my time as a parent of a young parent of a relatively, obviously young ADHD child, we've learned a whole bunch. We know a whole bunch, and we have much better treatments. We have much better approaches to evaluation, and we're making progress, folks. We really are. We know 100% that ADHD is a genetic predisposition, that it is 85% heritable, and that it is not a brain damage. It's a difference. Your brain is different if you have ADHD than if you're a neurotypical person. And along with that difference comes some difficulties. The world is not really designed for people who are chronically outside the box thinkers and sometimes value stimulation over logic, and sometimes are able to see a creative solution that nobody else can see. We're not really set up for that. Our systems are basically based on being compliant rather, and doing what is expected of you, and that is not this. That is not the way the world is set up, or at least most of the world that ADHDers have to face before they become adults. The real problem is that all of us went through these same systems, and all of us were either rewarded by the system or scarred by the system as parents and as professionals, and sometimes we reflect those scars on our kids. And what can you do? I want to talk about some things, though. As an ADHD child, and if you're watching this, you probably have either an ADHD child or an ADHD family in some form or other. ADHDers, they need stimulation. I'm talking about they need it. It isn't that it would be a nice thing. It's that their brains only feel normal when they're getting some kind of stimulation. And that's where you get into some difficulties, because, if you're a parent who has been through the compliant system and you are compliant yourself, a lot of times everything you do is pretty much a habit. If it's a weekend, you do what you do every weekend. Mow the lawn, buy groceries, do the laundry, get ready for the next week. If you're on vacation, you go to the same places every time and do the same things you've always done on vacation. You have to think about that a little bit with your ADHD child. Okay? If home life is all about compliance and doing what you're told and all that sort of thing, you're going to have troubles. You're going to have difficulties with your ADHD ADHD child. He's going to be, or she, they're going to be frustrated. Whether they express it or not, they're going to be frustrated and a little bit unhappy and a little bit restless. And trust me, when your ADHD child is restless, it's not a good time for anybody. So here I'm talking about adventure. Adventure has a mixed sort of impression, I guess I'd say, in our society. It's like adventure is for crazy 20-year-olds who go off and do odd things that we kind of are interested in, but don't really think we would particularly want to do that ourselves. And oh, thank you, Beverly. Appreciate that. Anyway, the idea is that adventure is for other people, for young adrenaline junkie, 20-year-old people trying to prove to the world that there's something special or something. But actually, it's not. I mean, we've all of us got a need for some kind of stimulation by what we do. And if we don't, then, well, let's just say life as a dull person is not what most of us strive for. So your ADHD child, especially, actually needs for you to be doing something interesting and different as a family, particularly this time of year when most everybody, at least in the United States, goes on vacation sometime in the summer. And so the deal is to try to make what you do interesting on these vacations, that it's not always doing the same thing at the same place, unless that place is pretty wonderful and pretty interesting. And for some families it is. I know in New England a lot of times families have lake cottages. They're called cottages, whether they are just a ramshackle shack or they're a 9-bedroom semi-mansion, but that's the cottage. And that is passed through families, and that's where the families spend most of their vacation time. But that's a whole different thing, because there are usually water sports and boating and canoeing and kayaking and mountain climbing and all sorts of things that you can get involved in. And that's what your ADHD child wants. Wants something active, that's interesting, that's exciting, and that's what you need to provide. And you need to provide it because it's going to be not only good for your ADHD child, but it's going to be good for your family as a whole. Because while ADHDers have some special needs, all of us have the need for some kind of interesting, exciting, adrenaline pulsing kind of activity periodically. Okay, I'm not suggesting we all ride our mountain bikes down the side of a cliff or anything, but you want something to get you going. You want something to get you moving. And your ADHD child actually needs this. He's going to function, or she's going to function normally, more normally, when they are stimulated, when the adrenaline is rushing, when they're being towed on their skateboard by the bicycle, when they're, and I'm not saying all of these things are good things or that I recommend them, but understand that they like and absolutely need and feel most normal when there's a lot of adrenaline flowing. And that's sometimes hard for people who don't have ADHD to really understand and get level with, because we're all raised in a compliance-based system. You have to pay attention to the rules. You have to follow the rules. And that means tolerating a whole bunch of boredom, which we don't usually acknowledge very, very much. We don't talk about, well, that was just boring. We say, oh, I should have paid attention better, or that kind of thing. Well, that ain't that isn't actually true. I mean, we, all of us, need to be interested in what we're doing. We, all of us, need to find something in what we do that's stimulating, that's exciting, that's interesting. ADHDers just are a little more extreme because when they're not excited, have a hard time doing anything. Okay, so they need to be a little bit interested in what they're doing, a little bit excited about what they're doing, or they'll not be able to perform at all. And that's why you see an awful lot of young people with ADHD. I mean, young, I'm talking about people in their 20s who are ex-game athletes and that sort of thing, who do ride their mountain bikes down the side of cliffs, or do ski jumping to extremes, or skis down cliffs, all those sorts of things. That's when they feel the most normal. Okay, so when you are looking at a vacation, don't look at the same old, go home to visit mom all the time, or whatever your family, what do I want to say, your family fallback position is in terms of vacations. Do something interesting, do something exciting, do something that's a little offbeat, that you feel is a bit of a challenge yourself, and that'll probably be the best vacation your ADHD child has ever had, and by and large, that'll make it a better vacation for almost everybody in the family. I mean, okay, so ADHDers need stimulation, they need excitement, they need to be really interested in what they're doing. You, as the parent of an ADHD child, need to be aware of that, and you need to be observing your child to understand what areas really interest and excite them, what things do they naturally show an interest and a liking for, and make sure that your family time, your vacation times are interesting, not boredom, not boring, not repetitive, not just getting the chores done. Make it interesting. Make your family life exciting. It's better for your ADHD child. It's also better for you. Okay, well, as you may have noticed, I have been offline for a few weeks. I have been on vacation, and just got back from Alaska, which is why I'm a little late this morning. I was up there for almost 3 weeks. Saw Denali, saw Arctic or Glacier Bay, saw a lot of glaciers up close, saw a lot of the Alaskan wildlife up close. And as kind of a treat, the last night there, we had a pod of whales right around the boat that we were on. It was it was an interesting time and a bit of an adventure. It was funny that when we were at Denali, we were in a heat wave, like most of the rest of the country is right now. But when we were in southeast Alaska, it was cold and damp and frequently raining, and wore every layer of clothing I had. But that was exciting. That was interesting. That was a job. Well, it was an adventure, and that's what I'm saying. You got to look for. That's what your ADHD child really craves and really needs. Okay, yes, Beverly, it was exciting and interesting and pretty awesome all the way around. I'm glad to be home. I think I slept 12 straight hours. We had to take a red eye back from Seattle, and so it was not the best 24 hours of my life, but we made it, and back to the normal life, the normal game. Okay, so I am Dr. Terry James Gingras, and this is Dr. G's ADHD Chat, the show that tries to make world safe for ADHD. And remember, people who think outside the box solve the world's problems. Maybe your child is that outside the box thinker who's going to solve big problems like global warming and so on. Okay, so I'm available. Well, you can leave me messages, obviously, somewhere down below this where this is presented. I have a website, terrygingrassphd.com, and we will catch you next week. Okay, bye now.